First things first, we've got the DXY, which has been mostly bearish this week. Very big push to the downside, clearing out major lows. So at this point in time, I'm kind of waiting to see what dollar's going to do next. I'm not necessarily looking to short the pair or short the dollar, because we are still kind of very corrective as a whole. Can even draw it like that or like that. I mean, more or less, we're in a corrective channel. That's the biggest takeaway for the DXY. The market is bearish, yes, but we are still very corrective, and a big up move I think is still on the cards. Yes, the market's still bearish. I think intraday the sales do look very good. There's a nice brief consolidation here, where if the market can come back to retest that, I think that's a very smart place for a short and a continuation. Of course, you got prior lows as well, which hopefully could act as resistance. So I do still see more downside here for USD, but again, how much downside, that's the question. We might still keep falling for a few days. I think the bigger move in terms of where the next major swing will be, I think we'll form another major low like we did over here and probably see a pullback over the next few weeks. But of course, that could take some time, so I'm not going to speak too much about that, especially today's Friday. You know, we're not really too concerned with that until next week. So for now, USD, if there is a pullback, I mean, I highly doubt we'll have a pullback like this and a continuation by the end of today. So I don't really see much opportunity. I wouldn't look to buy the dollar. I think that's pretty aggressive, taking into consideration how oversold the market is. Yes, I do expect a retracement, but I think trying to catch that low is just always an aggressive trade, a difficult trade to take. But I do like the intraday shorts here. If you drop to a lower time frame, respect support, I think naturally that will give a nice push lower. So of course, EURUSD pretty much just flipped that bias around. Similar brief pause there in the market. Nice rally. You've got prior resistance over here, which of course will be turned support. And I think that will be a nice area for a bounce and a continuation for EURUSD as well. Of course, same situation as the dollar. We've got this uptrend, things still look really corrective. So yes, the market's still bullish, but I'm not expecting crazy moves for EURUSD because of the fact that we are quite stretched and we are still quite corrective. If we find some momentum that does break us out of this channel and we have a big move like this, okay, maybe the trend is healthy again, maybe we are going to continue. But for now, I am looking for somewhat of a pullback back into structure here. I might see a nice bounce there back to wherever the swing high is. So keeping it short and sweet with Euro, because it looks like the trend is becoming less and less healthy, and probably likely for a bigger correction. So I would keep it short and sweet, find some nice areas, take some entries, maybe back into the swing high and potentially call it a day. So I would keep a close eye on 1.162, lines up very well with the DXY bias. Two very similar levels, just of course inverse of each other. It's always good to see EURUSD and the DXY kind of in sync with their price action. But yeah, it's a bullish market. If we can come lower, I do think there will be some nice buying opportunities. Of course, we want to see some signs of rejection first before jumping in. But if we can see that, I think that is a smart place for some intraday buys. In terms of pound USD, I think same situation as well. We've had a big consolidation. Price, of course, cleared that to the upside. In fact, pound USD looks a little bit more healthier than euro. I like the momentum here with pounds. We've had a very flat range, which of course price has broken to the upside with quite a big push. So the way I see it, the market is very bullish here. We've kind of broken out that range with somewhat of a healthy breakout. So if the market could be kind enough to retest the high of the range, which of course would be prior resistance turned support, I think that would be a very healthy place for a buy. You've of course got this brief range here as well, which gave us some momentum. I think that would be a smart place for a buy. And again, similar with euro, I wouldn't look for a crazy move of pound. Market's been bullish for a while. We are quite kind of dry here a little bit, so I would be careful of that. But I do think we can see a push back into the high, and then we'll go from there. Maybe we break through the highs, maybe we turn back around from there, maybe leave a position to run and you trail stops. You could do that as well. But this is a solid level of resistance because it kept us ranging for a few weeks. Now that, of course, price has seen a very substantial break of that level, you know, with convictions, not like we just half-heartedly broke the high. It was a very impulsive push, and now price is back at well, hopefully pricing me back at 1.362. So pound USD buys also look good. Again, I think this looks a little bit better than euro. But for both of them, I'm not expecting big moves, primarily because we already had one. So I do expect bigger pullbacks at some point, but for now, things are still looking pretty bullish. In terms of dollar CAD, this one's been pretty bearish. No kind of pullback for dollar CAD so far, but I'm not going to write that off. I still do think dollar CAD can make a push back to the lows here at 1.355. There's, of course, support we've just broken through. In fact, if I go to the hourly chart, see it a bit better. So you got support which you just broke through, and if we can see a retest of that, I think that's a smart place for a short. I was looking for price to rally back into the highs and then sell, but price was very bearish yesterday afternoon, so it does not look like we'll get back up there. But this is a pretty key level, which of course we have smashed straight through, and looking for a retest of that, provided we see some healthy rejection, I think is definitely a nice place for a short, and an area where we could probably try and catch the next swing high. We've got 1, 2, potentially third, and of course if that does hold, we could probably see a swing at least back to the low, but more importantly back into this low. So I think the risk reward on this position makes a lot of sense, and we could see a lot more downside. So yeah, dollar CAD, I like the sells with dollar CAD. Of course, USD is still pretty weak, so that kind of ties up with that pretty well. Dollar CAD for the most part still putting in a lot of major lower highs and lower lows too, for that matter. But you got high there, low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. So again, this potentially could be the next lower high in this sequence, and potentially we could still see some new lows beyond that. So yeah, for me, dollar CAD, very bearish. It lines up with the bias with the dollar quite well. Structure's pointing down, and we do have some key levels for price to come back and retest as well. And in terms of Aussie dollar, again, still keeping a close eye on the shorts, not quite at the upper end of the channel. So if I whip out the old ascending channel, not quite at the upper end. I'm kind of looking around the 0.66 area for some selling opportunities to try and anticipate a third test of the high and a swing back down. Because after all, Aussie dollar is still very much within the channel. As long as price kind of rebounds either side, there's not much to do really. We had this massive fake out at the beginning of the week. I did say perhaps we could retest the low end of the channel. That might be a nice place to position long and ride the wave back to highs again. Didn't really see that retest, but we have been pretty bullish since. Looks like price is struggling at resistance here a little bit. We might see a bit of a dip because of that, but I do think we can still get to the up end of the channel. That's, after all, the only area which I would look to sell from really. I wouldn't want to sell in the middle of that. I want to be up at the highs or down at the lows, away from all of the noise. So price can push higher. That would interest me, provided we see some healthy rejection. Then possibly we could see a pushback to 0.647, which is the lower end of the channel, and then maybe a bigger breakout as well. So where I see it, Aussie dollar could still be a ticking time bomb to break lower. But yeah, just waiting for a good entry before getting involved. And at the moment, not really interested in price. New Zealand dollar, not a big fan of, to be honest. I mean, yeah, I'm not a big fan. I don't really have a clear-cut setup. I'm kind of just boxing this off as a range and just leaving price to do its thing there and not really trying to get involved. There might be some nice sells as we do approach the high. Of course, this is very, substantial resistance. We did get a nice sell. So naturally, there could be another short opportunity off the back of that. How big of a move, I'm not too sure. I'll be keeping a close eye on those shorts, to be honest, because I do think we can still rally higher. I think after this kind of massive sell-off followed by a very sharp recovery, I think we are likely to see new highs past that point there. So if we do short, I've got an expectation I'm probably form another higher low to go and break the highs. So if I was short from here, I would be very watchful over that trade. But we are at resistance, provided we see a strong rejection. That could be a nice short to take, especially intraday. I think right now the market is quite flat, no substantial rejection. So I would be waiting to see if that can happen. But the best I've got with New Zealand dollars, we're at resistance. We might see a bit of a sell-off from there. So keep an eye for shorting opportunities, but definitely not my favorite pair at the moment. In terms of gold, So gold, I have been looking to buy the pair, but it looks like we're about to break support, or have we? Yeah, I mean, looks like we're about to break. I wouldn't say that the breakout's clear cut right now, so I wouldn't suggest breakout, but it looks like we're on that path there. So yeah, gold's not looking good for longs at all. I said if price does break through support, I will just stop looking to buy the pair altogether right now. I still would be bullish bias because if I do expand to the daily chart, this is a very long-standing uptrend. So us breaking through support there doesn't necessarily mean okay, we're just going to sell off a cliff now. It might mean that we see a bit more downside, but I would still say very bullish. I think this is a very significant low for gold. If we're to push back into 31.60, 31.50, I think this is a smart place for a buy. But if we are going to break support, here, then I would expect to see lower highs form, or continue, I should say, because they have already been forming. And that probably will take us back down into support there. So there could be some nice shorts on gold in the meantime to ride it back down into that 31.50 area. Then if you're looking for a bigger swing trade, there might be some nice buys down here to take back up again, but we'll see how price operates in those areas before taking any longs. The way I see it, gold is still very much bullish on the high time frames. There's a lot of upside. Excuse me. There's a lot of upside. There's a lot of upside potential for gold, technically and fundamentally, but maybe we are due a deeper correction before we do see some upside. So keep an eye on the shorts. Then maybe we can take some selling opportunities intraday, and then maybe some long-term swings later on. But I probably would wait for price to get here now before looking to buy. And in terms of silver, this one had a very strong reaction off the high over here, which of course looks like somewhat of a head and shoulder pattern. So with silver, I'm still very bullish on this one as well. I mean, I am looking for price to come lower anyway. I did say I was looking for a buy off this level, 34 point, just below 35, but 34.89, something like that. This level here looks really good for a long. I'm still very interested in that level. We had a brief pause there as well, and a massive bullish candle following that. So there's a lot of momentum from this area. So I'm still looking for a retest. The only way I do get put off buying silver is if price was to break back within this level, because this might be deemed to be a bit of a fake out, and that could invite a lot of selling pressure. And a bigger move to the downside, which I'm not so interested in right now with silver. So still bullish, still looking for a deeper retracement. I think that rejection is quite significant, so we probably could see a bit more downside off the back of this. I know this is a pretty strong level of support. There's been a lot of wick rejections here. I would keep an eye to see how we operate here. Maybe if you do provide some more wicks, maybe price does find support and rally again. But again, I would expect this to be the more significant level. So this is where I would want to position myself long from. So I'm kind of hoping to see price break that area and then react with that 34.8 level. Then yeah, hopefully you can find some buys there for silver as well. But judging gold, it looks like gold could come lower. So because of that, probably silver comes low as well.